do some texting on it. And I've noticed over the past couple of years, there is on occasion somebody will be texting and 3 letters will come up in capital letters. It's called LOL. I didn't know what that meant after the first few times I had that. I inquired. I said, I asked someone, what does LOL mean? LOL mean? It says laugh out loud. Well, I want to tell you that I have found that. I have discovered that LOL in the Bible. And it's here in Genesis chapter number 18. I'm going to show it to you. Laugh out loud. It's right here in Genesis chapter number 18. Now, I know sometimes in texting, when you think of LOL, it seems kind of shallow and frivolous. But I'm going to show you something in the Bible where laughing out loud, now I mean this in a discreet, reverent manner, the phrase laugh out loud has a spiritual significance to it. And so it will be sobering, and I think it will cause you to think about who God is when you see this in the text, laugh out loud. Verse number 1 of Genesis chapter number 18. And the Lord appeared unto him, that is Abraham, in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him, and when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself toward the ground, and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on, for therefore are ye come to your servant. And they said, So do as thou hast said. And Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine flour, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran unto the herd, and fetched a calf tender and good, and gave it unto the young man, and he hastened to dress it. And he took butter and milk, and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. And they said unto him, Abraham, Where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, Behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, that is one of the 3 visitors says this to Abraham, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well-stricken in age, and he ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of a surety bear a child, which am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. And he said, Nay, thou didst laugh. Laughing out loud. Laughter can bring in a tense moment some relief. We laugh when we're nervous. We laugh when we're a little embarrassed. We laugh when we're afraid. And sometimes we just laugh because somebody said something witty, funny. Then sometimes we kind of chuckle without laughing out loud at just some things that happen to you and stuff that happens to me. There was a guy, true story, a guy who retired, and he always wanted a water bed. He got a water bed, and after 2 weeks he woke up one morning and the middle of the bed was wet. He said, I got a leak in my water bed. He worked hard to get that water bed out of his house to the side to the side of the house where the water hose is, and he decided to fill that thing up as full as he could with water so he could see where the leak was. He filled it up so much with water that the thing bounced into a full bubble, rolled down the hill of his front yard, crashed in the front door of his neighbor, and exploded. In disgust and embarrassment, he goes to the furniture store and he said, "Never again will I buy a waterbed." And he bought just a standard box springs and mattress and bed frame, put it up, went to bed, and he woke up the next morning and his bed was wet in the middle of the bed. And he discovered the bathroom over his main floor bedroom had a leak. I would imagine it's going to take that guy about 5 years before he can chuckle at that. There was a lady whose husband died, and she discovered the day before his funeral that he had left all of their hard-earned money to his mother. And she went to the tombstone maker, the engraver, and she said, "You stop. Don't you dare put on that tombstone, 'Rest in peace.'" He said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. The work's done. I can't take it back." She said, "Have you got any more room on that tombstone for anything else?" He said, "I do." She said, "All right, let's see. So you got 'Rest in peace,' then you put at the bottom, 'Till we meet again.'" We laugh and we chuckle, and God made us to laugh at appropriate times. But can I tell you, here is Sarah, and she is laughing. It's kind of inappropriate, but don't read so much into that you lose any respect or any awe of Sarah, because she is a marvelous, God-fearing woman. She loves God. She's one of the great patriarchal women of the Old Testament. She has an esteemed place in glory. I can't wait till I meet this lady who laughed out loud because of an unbelievable promise that God made to her. The backdrop of this text is that it's 100 degrees or more. It's so hot you can't work. So hot you can't even travel. It's so hot that Abraham and Sarah have to find a little relief under a shade tree. It's just so hot. And when it gets hot like that, things just kind of look hazy. And in the hazy horizon, Abraham sees 3 guests approaching. He goes out and meets them, and he bows before them with this great man so humble. And then he does what in the Middle East, especially in that day, even to today, is so important. That hotels back then were non-existent, and today they're not like there are in America. Hospitality in the ancient world was an absolute must, and he brings them in and he feeds them and he treats them like royalty, and so be it. They are guests from heaven. These are men, their names are not given because it is God who orchestrated these, we could say, angelic visitors to this man, this old man, and his aged yet beautiful wife. The Bible describes her as beautiful. I want you to understand, first of all, in laughing out loud, that it all is precipitated upon the prerequisite of this unbelievable truth. Abraham is now in this point of his life. He's 99 years of age, and he is discovering in blatant, bold captions written in the clouds that God has a plan for him. Now understand that the biblical text is speaking unabashedly to us, for us to grasp this tonight on this last night of June of 2019. God, if he has a plan for Abraham, he has a plan for every one of us. Now this plan incorporates a 99-year-old man and his 90-year-old wife giving birth to a promised child. It is God who says to Abraham in chapters 12 and chapters 15 and in the prior chapter just to this one, God rehearses again and again that he has a covenant that he's going to, through this aged man and his elderly wife, he is going to set in stone the Abrahamic covenant whereby Abraham in his old years shall have a family. That's a miracle in itself, but an even greater miracle, that family will then produce an entire nation, and we know why that nation was to be brought into form and formation and to carry on through the centuries until it grew into a bursting number of millions. Why? Because from the Jewish nation was to come a little baby born to Mary, also in miraculous circumstances of a virgin birth. God had a plan for Jesus all the way back, and it goes back to the day of an old man by the name of Abraham who never did anything of life until really he sensed God had a plan for his life. Yes. Now right now you and I need to sense God's got a plan for you. Amen. For every one of you, God has a plan. Regardless of your age, regardless of how much life you've experienced, it does not matter. It's like I sense in the Spirit of God, it's push button time. And for every one of us, God just simply wants us to press the button and reactivate in our lives the awareness God has a plan for me, and to acknowledge God has a skillful plan for my life on this earth. Amen. And we're to recognize that tonight. Now sometimes people will fling a little fault at Sarah. And they will say, poor Sarah, she's just not as serious as she ought to be. A little fault is found that she laughed. Now careful. Maybe there was a little lack of faith, but that's not a stain against her character. She's a God-fearing woman. It is God who's choosing her. And he knew that she would laugh. And also, in one chapter previous to Sarah laughing, it is God who again, on the third time, is rehearsing his covenant with Abraham. And he gets into such detail and saying, Abraham, you're going to have to bear a son one day. And the chapter previous to this, when Abraham was just a little younger, the Bible says that Abraham not only laughed, he laughed so hard that he fell down on the ground and laughed. He laughed out loud. Why? He was finally understanding God has a plan for me. Amen. It's going to start with a little boy named Isaac, not Ishmael. That was the circumventing of God's plan. God knew that Abraham would do that. And yet God was determined if Abraham would stay humble, he would use him. See, some of us get in our minds, if we kind of blow it, if we don't quite live up to everything somebody expects of us to live, or if we even don't live up to our own expectations, that we've messed up and we've marred the plan of God. Now, understand, we can thwart God's will, we can kind of hinder his blessings, but if God's got his hand on you, he knows his plan, so we just need to thank God that he's not going to put us on a junk heap and say, I'm done with you. God's got a plan, and he's not going to finish it until you and
I just saddle up, square our shoulders back, and say, I may have made a mistake or two, but I'm going to shoulder this plan. I'm going to do what God's asked me to do, and I'm going to fulfill that plan in my life. Amen. Laughed out loud. Because God has a plan. Secondly, I see in this text, God not only has a plan, but I also see that with God, all things are possible. Amen. As long as God is with you, the plan is possible. Regardless of what it is, God has no limitations. You and I do, but not God. And we're dealing tonight not only with our lives and the summation of our willpower and abilities, we're dealing with a limitless God. Amen. So he's got a plan. And all things are possible with him. And we can understand why Abraham laughed. And we can sympathize with Sarah. She laughed. This just kind of called him on the carpet, and Abraham said, you laughed, didn't you? No. Well, she said that. She told Phil, but she said it because she was nervous. She was afraid. God knew she would do that. And as God is looking at her, Sarah, you laugh? You laugh? Oh, no, not me. This is not a justification for living on the edge or kind of being loose with what we say. But sometimes if you're not careful, you and I can say the least bit, we can just give some wrong information and not mean to. And all of a sudden, I've heard good people say, oh, I've just told a lie. No, you didn't. You thought there were 6 eggs in the carton and there wasn't but 3. Because I got in and I ate the other 3. You didn't lie. I've seen it on people's face. Oh, preacher, I've lied. No, you haven't. And then sometimes Satan will just get on your shoulder. You didn't quite cut it right there. You weren't quite fair right there. Oh, God can't use you. He's a liar. Don't listen to him. In fact, have a little chuckle. You may not want to laugh out loud, but have a little chuckle in your heart and a little humility and a whole lot of grace and realize that number one, God has a plan for your life and all things are possible with God. Amen. Famous journalist was out in Kansas, and he was out looking at the beautiful countryside. And he thought for his peace, he was so famous, he had a program on television for years. And he decided, I really need, for the program next week, I need to get an airplane. I need some aerial pictures. These farmlands are so beautiful. And he happened to see an old plane behind one farmer's house. He knocked on the door and he asked the farmer, he said, can you fly that plane? And take me up, let me take some pictures for my next week's show on TV? The farmer said, sure. And they went around the old ragged-looking airplane, and the journalist said, hey, can you take that big side door off this plane? It would obstruct my picture taking. I can just take much better pictures without that big side door. Farmer said nothing to it, took a screwdriver and unhinged it and took that big side door. They were flying 2,000 feet up in the air. And the journalist was taking pictures. All of a sudden he looked up into the cockpit and he yelled at the pilot. He said, you're doing a mighty good job. How long have you had your pilot's license? And the farmer said, how long have I had what? How long have you had your pilot's license? What pilot school did you go to? Did you go down to Missouri? Did you go to Kansas City? He said, I ain't got no pilot's license. The journalist said, well, how do you get there? How did you come to this airport? And the farmer said, well, shucks. About 6 years ago, I was on the back side of my 500 acres of property, and I was going by a little ravine I'd never been to, and I saw about 20 pieces of junk laying out there, and he said, I got to studying over it. I said, I believe that's an airplane. He said, sure enough, I put that in a big old farm warehouse of mine, and I put it together, and it's an airplane. I tinkered with the engine, and I taught myself to fly it. Here's what the journalist said. It was the best flight and the smoothest ride he'd ever had after flying 40 years in the air on jet planes. All things are possible with God. You are never too young to serve God because all things are possible with Him. Amen. There's a lot I can't do, but there's not anything God cannot do. Forgive the double negative, but our God can do anything. And He can do it with you. He can do it with all of us. He has a plan, and all things are possible with Him. Lastly, I see in this text, oh, bless His name, God keeps His promises. Amen. He keeps His promises. I'll tell you, that makes a laugh in my soul. A sacred laugh of joy. God's got a plan for me. There's nothing impossible with God. You're never too young to serve God, and you are never too old to serve God. You're never too young to start, and you're never too old to stop. Amen. There are no excuses. You're never too young to start, and you're never too old to stop. Amen. Lord. You're always going to be confronted. Confronted with, am I too old? Am I too young? You will never be so old, and I said it poorly, but you'll never be so old that you're justified in stopping God's plan for your life. Amen. Lastly, God keeps His promises. God keeps His promises. 1 year after this chapter 18 of Genesis, a beautiful lady in her 90s gives birth to a boy. And you know what she names him? Isaac. Do you know what Isaac means? Laughter. I mean, every day that Abraham went out of the tent to call this boy, it's like, hey, Laughter, come on home. Hey, Laughter, get that firewood. Hey, Laughter, it's time to worship God. And I'll tell you a little laughter in a sacred, pleasant sense. Not in a shallow, bellicose sense, but in a sacred, precious sense. A little laughter will go just right in your home and in mine. And it can happen when you realize God has a plan. All things are possible with Him. You're never too young to start, but you are, let me say it correctly this time, you are too old to stop. You are too old to stop. And you're never too old to start. Because Satan can tell elderly people, well, you can't really get fanatical about Jesus. No. You are to be sophisticated and reserved. True. Nothing wrong with that. Friend, I will tell you one thing. If you say I'm too old to do something, there's too much starch in your necktie. There's too much starch in your socks. God keeps His promises. He promised that woman who laughed, you're going to have a baby. He promised that 99-year-old man, you're going to have a baby. Because it's not about you having a baby walking around saying, look what I did at 99 years. No. It's not about trying to feel good. It's not about ego. And it's not about having everything in your life the way you want it. But years of age wants a baby. You want to be 100 years old chasing a ball with a little brat in the yard? Here, Daddy, catch! I'm sorry, Daddy, I broke your neighbor's window. You don't want that at 100 years of age. Unless God wants it for you. But whatever it is, for us, not a child, God's plan is just as real. He kept his promises to a man who laughed out loud so hard he fell on the ground and laughed. He kept his promises to a woman he knew that would find that his plan for them was going to be outrageous, and she just kind of put her hand over her mouth and chuckled and laughed. You laughed? No, not really. You laughed. But that didn't make God lose his loving favor and his kind disposition and his foreknowledge that he knew these two were the people he needed. And God has not lost confidence in not one of you in this place. You can lose easily confidence in yourself. Others can lose confidence in you. But remember this, you're not put here to please man. You're put here to please God.
Amen.
God kept his promise. He kept his, promises, multiple promises to Abraham and to Sarah and to little Isaac. Abraham would take him in the market. Here's my boy, laughter. And he's no comedian. He's just a little boy that represents the joy that can come to a heart when a life finds the plan of God. He's the joy that comes into a home that realizes you're never too young to start. You're always too old to stop. And you're never too old to start either. God has a plan. And God keeps his promises.
Amen.
He keeps his promises. Nelia Garber received, when she was a young mother, a gift Bible from her husband, and she had a little boy, and the Holy Spirit led her one day, why don't you take your Bible out before your boy goes to school, even start school as a little boy, start showing him. The Holy Spirit spoke to her and said, start showing him my promises. And every day they would get that Bible out, the mother and the little boy named Doug, and they would take a pen and underline every promise that they read in the Bible. They just did it and read it and reread it. And as they reread the Bible, they would, all through the boys' childhood years, into adolescence, into teenage years, until he was a young man. And on his own, he and his mother underlined what they called the Promise Bible. When her son Doug was married, she gave the Bible to him, and God blessed him with 3 sons. But tragedy struck one day. Their home was burned to the ground. Everything was incinerated. Everything was exterminated by the flames. There wasn't one stitch of clothes left. All the photographs were burned. All the furniture was burned. There was nothing but a rubble of ash soaked under the firefighters' water. Doug's wife was out crying one day, going through the ashes, saying, I wish there was just one thing that could be left. One thing, God. Could I salvage one thing from this fire? Just one? She felt something under a little stick she had. And she wiped away the old wet ash. And there. Now everything was annihilated. Nothing but ash. But there was the Bible. Wet, covered in ash. She wiped the ashes off. And there was no fire damage to the Promise Bible. The wife takes the Bible. They were living with the mother-in-law. and they take a hair dryer and they go over the promised Bible. Slowly and carefully, they dried that Bible out. When Doug got home that evening, his wife said, "Look, I've been praying." She said, "I just refuse to have a fire that took everything in our family. And I know we got our lives, but I just wanted one thing." She said, "I'm sorry if it sounds petty of me." She said, "But I just had to have one thing." And she says, "God gave me my promise." And Doug said, "I know what you need to do. Let it fall open. Let's see what God says." Now, I'm not advocating you do this every day for your daily devotion. I'll tell you, once in a while, God can do something like this. The Bible fell open to Isaiah 43 and 2. Here's what it reads. It reads something like this. "Though you walk through the flood, my God shall be with you. Amen. Though you walk through the flames, you shall not be burned. Yes. Though you walk through the fire, it shall not consume you." Why? Because God keeps His promises. Oh, hallelujah. God keeps His promises. He is an all-powerful God, and He keeps His promise. Amen. Little Isaac. "Come here, Laughter. Hey, Laughter, your mom needs you. Hey, Laughter. Let's get these sticks up for wood. Hey, Laughter, let's get the cattle in." And as it comes and skips with a smile on his face, Abraham says, that boy, who is he? He is God's plan. That boy, who is he? He's God saying, nothing is impossible with me. He's God saying, I keep my promises to you. And God's saying that to every one of you tonight. Oh, blessed be His holy name. I feel this deep down in my soul. God's got a plan for every one of you. God's got a plan. God has no limitations. All things are possible with Him. God will keep His promises to every one of you. To me, to every one of you. God will keep His promises. One more thing and I've got to close. Marie Annette Bataza. Unusual name, but a precious little child. Who at 2 years of age took her first piano lesson. And at 4 years of age, as a child prodigy, gave her first piano recital. And at 23 years of age, was made a full professor of the graduate studies of piano at a major university. There's no life that is so successful that along the way the fallenness of this cruel world doesn't touch, and it touched little Anna Marie Bataza. Driving to teach at the university one day, speeding driver ran head-on into her and almost killed her. And for days in the intensive care unit, the doctors gave her absolutely no hope to live. But she had a praying mother. In about a month, she was released from the intensive care unit. But she couldn't pick up a pencil. She had no eye, muscle, hand coordination at all. She couldn't even feed herself for years. And her mother kept telling her day after day after day. What you are is a gift that God gave to you. What you become is the gift you give back to God. Amen. What you are is a gift that God's given to you. What you become is what you give as a gift back to God. said, Anna Marie, all things are possible with God. All things are possible with God. You can play the piano again. And she couldn't even pick up a pencil. Anna Marie, all things are possible with God. She started believing. And she couldn't figure herself. She said, Mother, we'll just see. She said, all of my life I've believed as you've taught me in a loving God. And I love Him whether I play the piano again or not. But I'm just going to ask Him if He has a plan for this mangled piece of humanity. And if I can play the piano again, I will do it as a gift unto Him. She struggled for years. And after 16 years after her accident, she finally was able to sit upright at a piano and play some music. People who knew her booked her at Carnegie Hall, where 2,000 people jam-packed that prestigious place of performance. They didn't care if all she could do was tap middle C. They were ready to applaud. And she didn't know what she could do. She walked in and she sat down on the piano stool and breathed a prayer. God, help me. And at that moment, everything came back to her. And in Carnegie Hall, she played non-stop for 2 hours. And when she finished, she got down on her knees at the prestigious Carnegie Hall and wept and breathed these words to God. I have given this 2 hours to you as my gift, O Father, to you. The next time life dumps on you and you feel like God's plan is marred and thrown away, have a little laugh in your soul, because God's got a plan for you. Amen. And He's not going to give up on that plan. You may give up on that plan, but God's not giving up on that plan. So why stop? And if you've come into you find a hesitation and you've been intimidated and maybe you failed God, get back up. That plan is not scrapped. Do what God's told you to do. Oh, blessed be His holy name. Do what God's asked you to do. He's got a plan, and Satan would like nothing more than for you to just throw it aside. Have a little laugh in your soul. Because with God, nothing is impossible. And with God, He keeps His promises. Now I've just preached this tonight, and I don't want to have a tone of mordancy, but I want to tell you something. I know how the devil plays tricks on people's minds. If for some reason I leave this world this week, let's say I'm in a car wreck, and I'm not just mangled. Let's say I go to heaven. Let's say something terrible happens to me. And you say, oh, and the devil jumps on your shoulder and says, oh, look at that. He preached nothing's impossible with God. God's got to, and look at him. We got to bury the preacher. I want to tell you, I so believe in the plan of God. If I die this week, it is all right. Amen. My God has a plan for you and for me. And nothing and nobody can change that if you just trust Him, because there is nothing impossible with God. I hate to sound redundant, but I've got to say it one more time. You are not too young to start. You must not stop regardless of your age. Why? Because you are so important? No! Because God can do anything through even somebody like me. God can use me, listen to me, He definitely can use you. God keeps His promises. And if I die this week, you better believe I'm cashing in on the promise. Woo! For to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. It's going to happen one day. I will tell you, there's no greater promise than that. Death doesn't defeat me. It's my door to get me where God wants me one day, and that is with heaven. Or I may be so old preaching one day that I don't have any teeth and you barely understand me, and I'll apologize after every sentence, but let me alone whether I'm here or somewhere else. Just let me preach, because nothing is impossible with God, and I got to tell it somewhere or I'll explode. Stand with me, please. Make an altar right where you stand. Oh God in heaven, we humble ourselves before your mighty hand. Oh God, I love you. I praise you. Nothing's impossible with you. You have a plan for every life. Oh, dear God, we thank you for that plan. We thank you, dear Lord, that you keep your promises to every one of us. And I thank you for those promises. Now, God, lead us, guide us, bless us. Most importantly, just love us. Keep your hand upon everyone in this church, everyone listening to us through the media. Oh, God, keep your hand upon them. Bless them, cover them, protect them. Speak into our spirits and let it be like a branding iron to our soul. The confidence that we have is not in anything, what little we might do, but it's in the greatness of our Heavenly Father. Help us to give you praise this week like never before. You didn't have to have a plan for us, but you did. Oh, bless your holy name. We serve an omnipotent God. Oh, bless your holy name. And you, our omnipotent, all-powerful God, you love us so much, you will keep your promises to us. Oh, bless His holy name. And we praise you today, and we thank you. We give you glory. In Jesus' wonderful name. May our service be humble. May our faith be lifted up. May our walk be steady. May our lives remain pure and clean. But may we believe you, God, with all of our heart. Because this is your work, not ours. Your work. And we praise you. In Jesus' wonderful, precious name. Brother Dean Duffy, would you close us in prayer?